Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new interview from MinnMax. MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. I am Ben Hansen. Thank you for being here. We are very honored today to have as our interview guest Masato Kato, who has been in the game industry for a very long time, going back to working on the Ninja Gaiden series on NES. Obviously, writer for Chrono Trigger, which we had a huge game club discussion on last year here at MinnMax. You can find that. It's called The Deepest Dive. It's the best, most thorough discussion about Chrono Trigger on the internet. Prove us wrong, please. Check it out. We'd love it. Also, he was the writer and director for Chrono Cross, worked on Final Fantasy VII, Xenogears, so much good stuff. Final Fantasy XI in there as well. His new game is called Another Eden, The Cat Beyond Time and Space. It is a game that was mobile only. Now it is coming to Steam, which is very exciting. So a whole new audience will get to experience this game that is in some ways seen as a spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger. It has time travel in it. It's got a frog hero. There are certain themes and elements you'll pick up on if you're a big fan of Chrono Trigger in there. Also, in the interest of full transparency, we are promoting Another Eden, The Cat Beyond Time and Space on the MinnMax Show podcast, but that is not connected to this interview. They reached out about promotion, and then I said, hey, could we possibly line up an interview with Masato Kato? Because we're huge fans of his work. So that's how this whole thing came about. Just a heads up, this interview will be dubbed because we also have the podcast version up in the Patreon exclusive podcast feed. If you support us at patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, you get podcast versions of The Deepest Dive, like on Chrono Trigger, early access to the MinnMax Show, podcast versions of Max Spoilers, all of our interviews. There's a lot of fun stuff there. But because of that, it is dubbed. But here's the catch. If you speak Japanese and you'd like to hear the raw Japanese, there is a link in the description below. There's a link that you can follow and you can actually hear the Japanese. I understand if you don't like dubbed, there's an alternative for you. If you appreciate that, we'd always appreciate you if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, checked out everything else we're doing here. But hey, without further ado, here's Masato Kato. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
We're looking forward to this as well.
Congratulations on Another Eden. What are you most proud of with this project?
So since I first started working on this project, it's been 6 years. And I've been working with the staff in the graphics and music and programmers. And the staff is actually very young. So I'm very proud of the fact that we have put together all of these young talents into one project. And I'm very proud of that. And I hope that the users enjoy this game will also enjoy this as well.
Yeah. I'd imagine that a lot of the young staff are fans of your work in the past. Do they ask you a lot of questions about your past?
Maybe they're scared of me, but they don't really ask too many questions.
Why would they be scared of you?
Maybe I'm so focused on my work that maybe there's an aura that people can't approach when I'm concentrating on my work.
Okay, gotcha. Is it difficult to find the financial support to create an RPG like the ones you're interested in creating these days?
I've never personally found it very difficult, and I do think it's a matter of skill and what you're trying to achieve. For example, if you are looking to make something that's, Hollywood level, with, a 3D open world and, stunning graphics, that does involve a lot of budget, and it also involves some risk that's taken. But for a game like Another Eden, the initial concept was that we wanted to kind of bring back that nostalgic feeling of games on NES, for example. Kind of that era of gaming, and we wanted to bring the fun that was in that kind of old style RPG. And when I started working on Another Eden, the team was actually only 10 people. So it really reminded me of the days when I was developing for games on NES.
What do you feel like modern games are missing that games back on the NES had?
So I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this. Of course, we've made a lot of strides in the technology in gaming. So, visually and also in terms of the data processing that games can use, it's made huge advancements. And for music and for graphics, a lot of games are stunning in that aspect. But I do kind of worry that developers might be focusing too much on those aspects and maybe focusing less on the actual kind of innate fun of the game itself, bringing innovation to kind of the core game. And so I do think that there needs to be more focus brought back to the core game and the fun aspect.
Yeah. And you feel like that came through with Another Eden? To the finish line, you felt like you maintained that focus on core fun gameplay?
できたと僕は言いたいですね。そ
Hopefully,
れを
I
でも
hope. But I do think it's up to the players to decide that.
So I'm curious, you said you were brought on when around 10 people were working on the project. Did they pitch you? How did the process work for you teaming up with this team?
So actually, at that time, I was kind of looking for something new to do, and I wanted to start fresh with people that I hadn't met before and in a new environment. So I was actually open to working on something new. And what I actually did was go on the internet, and I posted that, hey, I'm looking for a new project to work on. And luckily, WFS reached out to me. So I went and talked to them. And so the project kind of started from me meeting people that I had never met before. And this is actually how I've started a lot of my projects in the past. And when I talked to WFS, they actually told me they were working on some time traveling story. And that's what they wanted to work with me on. And for me, I was actually sick of writing about time travel. It's something that I'm so familiar with. So we actually had kind of a fight over it. But that's how it started. After joining WFS, I joined this small team that was just starting this project. And in this project, there was the former producer of Another Eden, and he had experience developing games in the past. But the other staff, they were all in their 20s, and actually they had never made a single game before. So when I met them, I thought, are you serious? I didn't think that they could be serious, but they were very excited about this concept of making a time traveling game. So I was so surprised, and as I said before, I didn't want to work on this project at all. So we had kind of a lot of clashes, and I basically said I didn't want to do it, but the producer and director were very adamant on working on this project, and I think also because of my background, they definitely want to work on this time traveling concept. So in the end, I kind of gave in, and that's how Another Eden started.
So it just came from a place of you didn't want that, clear marketing connection of it's the spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger. You wanted to try and create something more fresh and new initially?
So, of course, I didn't want to just make a copy of Chrono Trigger, and kind of did the same thing. As a creator, as a creative person, I do want to, work on new concepts. And since in the end, we did decide to work on this time traveling story, I did want to take a different approach, even with the same thing. And I feel that with Another Eden, I've achieved that.
So even if you weren't passionate about time travel to begin with, it seems from my point of view that you're definitely a writer interested in big themes like fate and God and identity. Are those still your main passions, or is it just a coincidence that these keep coming up again and again and again?
So I don't necessarily think it has to do with time travel or even me as a creative person. Those themes that you mentioned about fate and God and identity, those have to do with kind of how our themes as humans, as how we live our lives. And through my experience of reflecting back on my life and reflecting on my life and how I've lived up to this point, I think it's natural that I would come back on these things.
Yeah, you're still somebody obsessed with focusing on the big picture issues.
Rather than kind of me pushing my idea of my life onto players. I always think that I would like the players who play the game to think for themselves and also ask themselves these questions. And it's easy for me to kind of say, hey, this is my experience, this is what I think about life. But I think it's important for players to kind of reflect on themselves, and I would also like to hear their ideas. So I hope that my story kind of asks each person individually, what do you think about these themes? And here's what I think, but I want to also hear from you.
Yeah, it makes me think of, in Chrono Trigger, there's this ongoing mystery of the entity or some large mysterious force or spirit that's controlling the events of the game, and it's almost like the game itself is a way for the entity to understand itself. Do you want to talk about some of the inspirations for those ideas in the past and what intrigued you about that idea?
I think what you're referring to, I took inspiration from the stars as something that symbolizes a collection of life on Earth.
So the stars is what he saw as the larger entity in Chrono Trigger then?
Sorry, that was a mistranslation. The planet that they are on, kind of like Mother Earth, as we would say, but they are not necessarily on Earth.
Okay, so it's a way. So this is fun. So it's a way for the characters in Chrono Trigger are the viewpoint for the Earth to better understand itself and its own nature. That is the core concept there.
I think there are moments in our lives when we kind of acknowledge that there is a higher power that humans can't necessarily understand, whether it's nature or time, something that is something that doesn't change. And there are moments when the character kind of fall upon those entities, and whether or not we as humans can fully understand it is a separate question, but I do think that there are times when we acknowledge the existence of powers like that. I think some people might interpret this as being spiritual or religious, but I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think it's something that all humans can experience. And life has been on Earth or on this planet for a very long time, not just humans, but also plants and animals. And they are born into this world and then they die. And as one person, you're only part of this existence. And I think there is a moment when anyone can feel that they are part of the kind of bigger picture.
Yeah. In your own life, what got you interested in these topics? Are there certain books or pieces of media that attracted you to thinking about these things?
So I don't think it's any event or thing in particular that led me to think about this, but kind of thinking through this myself, I think it came from a hope that I have that everyone does want to be kind of one with the planet they live on, and also friends with the planet, and there are a lot of people living on this earth, and also people who have been here in the past or will be here in the future. And I want to hope that people want to feel connected to the people who came before them and the people who will come after.
How do you try to reconnect with the planet when you're feeling disconnected? Where do you go? What do you do?
なんかどんどん怪しい世界に話になってるような気がしないでもない。
I hope we're not getting too sidetracked. What I used to enjoy is kind of going into the mountains and kind of sitting by myself in deep in thought, and also maybe going to the beach and kind of watching the waves. But these days, I feel that I don't necessarily have to go out of my way to go to those places. I think being connected to the people around you and living your normal life, you can still stay connected to the world.
It all sounds a lot like the concept of the live stream from Final Fantasy VII. Was that a contribution of yours on that project, or what did you focus on when you were working on Final Fantasy VII?
So the live stream in particular, that was actually by Nojima-san, who wrote the story for Final Fantasy VII. He came up with the concept, and for me, I was kind of helping the team out. But I think for many game creators who are in the RPG fantasy space, who have given some thought to kind of looking at the world perspective, a lot of us tend to be kind of romantic in that way, that we tend to think about similar concepts, and we have these fantasies in a similar way. It's not like I've had that particular discussion with Nojima-san or other creators. I think that if we do actually sit down and talk about it, that could get quite deep.
Gotcha. Do you still feel like you're dealing with these themes with Another Eden then in your writing?
So in Another Eden, there's no similar focus to the planet itself that the characters are on. But of course, there are these different eras in the game, and there is an entire world within the game. And as the story progresses, I think we've gotten closer to a kind of entity, like you mentioned, that guards over the flow of time and controls it.
Gotcha. So what did you feel like you were, what were the new areas you were exploring with Another Eden?
So regarding new concepts for Another Eden, as I discussed before, since we were taking on the theme of time traveling again, I wanted to take a different approach. And in Chrono Trigger, the story was that the characters would change history for a better future. And then in Chrono Cross, it was kind of flip on that concept, where the future that was lost comes back to kind of haunt you in a way. And when I was thinking of a new way to approach the time traveling theme in Another Eden, we thought of a different concept where the characters would work to save the future that was lost.
To save the future that was lost.
So save our lost future.
Okay, interesting. Huh. Are you excited for a whole new audience on Steam to get a chance to check out Another Eden?
So I couldn't wait for the Steam version to come out. I had kind of I was very excited to release on Steam. And initially, when we first launched the game, already we heard from people who wanted to experience this story and this RPG at home on their big screens. And I am aware that there are a lot of people like that. So for me, I can't wait for people to get their hands on it and into the hands of the RPG fans who prefer to play at in their own home on the big screen. And I'm excited, and I think the team is also very excited as well.
Yeah. Where do you look for feedback on the game? Do you Google your own name a lot? Look at fan theories, stuff like that?
Actually, I never search for my own name. I'm afraid I would get hurt, so I never do that.
I'm scared to let you know this, but there are a lot of people online that are a big fan of yours. It is nothing but good things out there.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much.
If I may ask one fan question, one dorky question. There are a lot of people online that try to figure out the connections between Chrono Trigger's Lavos and Jenova from Final Fantasy VII, both being these monsters that came from the stars. Is there any connection in your mind? Is that just another coincidence that came up?
Actually, that's never really occurred to me. For Final Fantasy VII, like I mentioned, Nojima-san was the main brains behind the project, and I was helping out some of the script with the live stream, for example, but he is kind of behind the whole concept.
Okay. So you're both just scared of some monster from the stars.
そこら辺野島さんに聞いてもらわないと僕にはわからない。
I'm not sure. You'll have to ask Nojima-san.
Okay, gotcha. Do you feel chained down by your past? By nerds like me that keep asking you about this stuff?
Actually, it's a rare opportunity that I get to speak with a fan, so it's never really occurred to me.
Oh, good. Oh, good. All right, I'm just wondering, off the top of your head, how many Chrono Cross characters do you think you could name right now?
何人と言われても結構いくらでも言えますよ。
I can list as many as I can. You want?
Do you think you could get all of them?
全員は難しいかもしれないですね。
Maybe not all of them.
Okay, in the 30 range?
いや、挑戦したことないから分かんないですけど。大丈夫じゃないですかね。
I think I can.
すくよみなり、毒なり、ママちゃんなり、コルチャなり、あとあれか、星の子とか、まあ、いくらでも多分出そうと思えば出てくるはずです。
Sorry, I couldn't get the names down, but he just listed about 5
But he was trying. Okay. All right. That's fair. That's fair. In the future, I'm curious, if you had infinite money, if I gave you infinite money, what type of game would you like to make?
今僕はちょっと考えてるな。
So a few concepts I've been thinking of. One is a horror game that doesn't depend on any visuals.
Ooh, so an audio-only horror game.
So something that doesn't depend on kind of grotesque visuals or like shocking visuals, something that appeals more to the emotions. And another concept I've been thinking of is, I don't have the specifics yet, but a game that's focused on music.
Oh, like creating music?
Yeah, and also maybe the player can enjoy music with other players, something like that.
Oh, interesting. Do you think Mitsuda would be interested in working with you on that one?
I would love to work with Mitsuda-san in his studio, Prokino Studio. And actually, before COVID, we had another Eden live event with a full band playing music, and it was a lot of fun for me. So I would love to collaborate with them again on other projects as well.
Oh, that's awesome. So are you planning on shopping new video game ideas around? What is the pitch process like for you?
ゲームの話は、
For now, I think I'm pretty busy with Another Eden.
そうですね。
Yeah, for Another Eden, we're approaching the 4th anniversary in Japan, and we're just finishing up part 2 of the main story. And, we've already been thinking about part 3 and how I want to go about it. And for the rest of the staff, they work on putting out fun content every month, whether it's quests or maybe new kind of games within the game. And actually, we did some crossovers with other titles like Persona 5 Royale and the Tales of series. And the fans really loved the crossovers. It was kind of a fresh take on crossovers within the game. So I would love to work on, new content that is very fun for our fans.
Yeah. How does that crossover content come about? Is it because people at these studios are big fans of your work and so they immediately pick up the call?
Yeah, so our talented young staff, they speak to other studios, and if it's a right fit for Another Eden, and if we think that it'll be fun content for our players to enjoy, we would start speaking with them and creating these new stories.
Do you feel like the legendary game designer that you are? Do you feel like that appreciation is hitting home to you at times?
Yeah, so I've never really thought of myself in that way. Actually, I didn't know the word legend in English until I joined the team, the Another Eden team. People refer to me in that way. But I think that as game creators, everyone is equal, no matter your experience or your age or gender. And I think that our team is a great team in the way that people don't really set boundaries or are too shy to say anything to other staff. For example, for me, when I was writing the script and I wrote a line by Payne, which is the main character Aldo's little sister in the game, and I would submit it, and the other staff would actually reject it and say, "Hey, Payne wouldn't say something like this," and they would correct me. So we're all equal in that sense, and as creative people, we kind of have the equal footing in the team.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. What's been the most meaningful feedback that you've received about Another Eden so far?
I think that feedback about Payne's line, that was surprising to me. It was shocking, but it was great feedback.
Everybody has room to grow. I don't know.
This was a character I created, so I'm not sure why other people, in that moment, I was upset that people were critiquing me.
I'm curious, with the Another Eden characters, a character like Cyrus, did that come from the team before you got there as well? Or did you want to bring back a frog hero?
Yeah, so for Another Eden, the concept and the story all started from when I joined the team. So I wrote the story from scratch and the characters as well, including Cyrus. And when I was making the characters, I thought, well, obviously we need a frog, right? So that's how Cyrus came about.
So you were sick of time travel, but you weren't sick of frogs.
カエル僕大好きなんで。
I personally love frogs, so I thought that we have to have a frog in the game, and I thought Cyrus is an innocuous name to give him.
It's perfect. Yeah, it's just perfect. Well, hey, I have one quick question for you before we bow out here. I'm curious if, with your connection, if you played the Final Fantasy VII remake and what you thought of it.
すいません、プレイしてないです。
Actually, I haven't played it yet.
That's fine. Look, get Another Eden out on Steam and then relax and enjoy that game.
楽しみにしてます。
I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today, and thanks for all of your hard work throughout your entire career. You've had a huge impact on a lot of people out there. So on behalf of all of them, thank you, sir.
こちらこそ。
Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy Another Eden.
Absolutely. Cool. And thank you so much for watching or listening to this interview. We have more in our playlist, so check that out or subscribe to MinnMax's channel. We'd appreciate it. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye. If you are sick of snark, clickbait, and an avalanche of movie news, you can help support independent games media by subscribing to MinnMax's YouTube channel here or checking out the benefits over on Patreon. It's a nice, clean handshake. You support us, and we won't make dumb, condescending stuff for you. Your support helps us continue our mission of focusing on games, friends, and getting better. Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. We'd appreciate it.